A promising architecture student's life was cut short, but a hidden detail in his final moments changed everything. We often see the headlines, the tragic ends, the stories that shake us to our core. But beneath the surface of every viral case, there are layers of complexity, unanswered questions, and details that are easily missed. This is the story of Nick Oniot, a young man whose bright future was tragically extinguished, leaving behind a trail of heartbreak and a mystery that continues to haunt those who knew him. While the initial narrative focused on a brutal crime, there's a crucial element that was overlooked, a detail that reshapes our understanding of his final hours. Nick Oniot was a bright, ambitious architecture student, full of life and dreams. His journey was just beginning, filled with the promise of creativity and a future he was building with his own hands. He was known for his vibrant personality and his passion for his studies. But on November 11, 2017, his life was abruptly and brutally taken. The news sent shockwaves through his community and quickly went viral, painting a grim picture of a senseless act of violence. The initial reports detailed a horrifying crime, suggesting a robbery gone wrong. The narrative that emerged was one of a young student targeted for his belongings. But as investigators delved deeper, inconsistencies began to surface. Was this truly a random act of violence, or was there something more personal at play? The community grappled with the brutality, seeking answers and justice for a life so cruelly ended. What investigators discovered next was a detail that fundamentally altered the perception of the crime. It wasn't just about a robbery, it was about something more intimate, something that pointed to a betrayal. This crucial piece of information, often lost in the sensationalism of the viral news, revealed a deeper, more painful truth about the circumstances leading up to his death. It shifted the focus from a stranger's act to a crime potentially committed by someone closer. The investigation uncovered evidence suggesting that Nick may have been targeted by someone he knew, someone who had a motive beyond simple theft. This revelation brought a new wave of grief and confusion. How could someone so full of life and potential be taken by someone they might have trusted? This complexity is why understanding these cases matters. They remind us that behind every tragedy, there are intricate human stories, and the truth is rarely as simple as it first appears. The case of Nick Oniot serves as a stark reminder of the hidden narratives within the stories that captivate public attention. It underscores the importance of looking beyond the surface, questioning the initial assumptions, and seeking the full truth. The details, no matter how small, can change everything. What was once a story of a random crime became a tale of a life stolen by someone perhaps closer than anyone imagined, leaving a void that can never be filled and a question that lingers: how well do we truly know the people around us? The first layer is context. Every documentary story begins before the moment people remember. There is a setting, a chain of decisions, and a public reaction that shapes how the event is understood. In the case of the tragic end of Nick Oniot, the important thing is not only what happened, but why the surrounding details made people pay attention. That is where the story begins to move from a simple summary into something more useful. It asks us to look at timing, location, pressure, and the way one moment can represent a much larger pattern. The second layer is what people often misunderstand. A single image or short clip can feel complete, but it usually leaves out the forces around it. Viewers see the result, not the build-up. They see the most dramatic frame, not the quiet details that made it possible. That gap matters because it changes the meaning of the story. When we examine the tragic end of Nick Oniot carefully, we are not just asking what is visible. We are asking what is missing from the first impression. Then comes the turning point. This is where the story stops being only about one scene and starts pointing to a bigger question. Why did this particular moment stand out? Why did people share it, debate it, or return to it later? The answer is usually not one simple fact. It is a combination of emotion, uncertainty, and recognition. People respond when a story feels specific, but also familiar enough to connect to something they already care about. Another important detail is the human tendency to look for a clean conclusion. We want a final answer, a clear lesson, and a single explanation that ties every loose end together. But strong documentary stories often resist that. They leave us with evidence, competing interpretations, and a reminder that public understanding is always incomplete. That does not make the story weaker. It makes it more honest. So what value can we take from the tragic end of Nick Oniot? The value is not just the event itself. It is the pattern around it. It shows how quickly attention forms, how easily context disappears, and how important it is to ask better questions before accepting the easiest version of a story. That is why stories like this continue to matter after the first wave of attention fades. In the end, the tragic end of Nick Oniot remains worth examining because it sits between fact and interpretation. We can see enough to understand why it matters, but not always enough to close the case completely. And that open space is where documentary storytelling becomes powerful. It does not tell us what to think. It gives us a clearer way to look. The story of Nick Oniot is a tragic reminder that behind every headline, there's a complex human narrative. If you found this deep dive into a viral case insightful, subscribe for more documentaries that uncover the hidden truths in compelling stories.